Hey all, Pixel here. We are back with the new 2010 Prius, our new problem-free Prius, because oh boy did I find a problem. So I went to the junkyard to get that chassis brace that's rotted out, and while I was there I realized that the whole rear under tray is missing, so I snagged that, and so crawling underneath to look at the mounts for this, found something that I have no idea how I missed. So we're now under the Prius, and turns out this seam here is not factory. At some point this car got hit in the rear and this part of the tub got replaced, like the rear portion of the tub got replaced. They seem to have done the repairs fine aside from this one seam, but the rust proofing on this seam has completely failed, and it's just rotten right at that seam. And then also where the spare tire bolts down is also rotten. I don't know how I missed that when I was crawling under it before, but that all needs to be addressed. So basically I need to cut out like a 2-inch strip, I guess, here, and weld in a replacement piece there, and then I've got to cut out this section here and weld in a plate there. The rest of it seems solid. I'm obviously gonna jab at it and whatnot, but it all seems fine. It's just this, I think the inside of this is wet, or not wet, but has rust in a way that I think water has been getting in somewhere, and I'm not sure where, and that's why this rotted out. That end they did a really poor job of sealing. I don't know what they used here, but they did a very poor job of sealing this joint, so water also probably got in from there. But either way, I need to cut this out, I need to weld in a patch, and I need to fix where the spare tire mounts. I have a suspicion that my clunk in the back of this is the spare tire bouncing around, so we'll find out if that's the case. If it is, that's awesome, because, you know, two birds, one stone and all of that. And then once I get this fixed, looks like I'm gonna have to make several of the mounts for that under tray. I think the reason it's not in here is it doesn't have them anymore. Like, I think one is supposed to be here possibly, but I'm not sure. I think the aftermarket tub that they used didn't have them, so that's a separate project. But for right now I gotta fix all this. The fun part is that this is related to the fuel system. This is my fills, so I'm gonna have to wrap this up here in something to protect it. And then inside, the hybrid battery is right there, so fun. That camera hit me in the back of the head. So this rusty screwdriver in here was convenient for finding all the rust. Unfortunately, it's really bad. It's way worse than I thought. So, as you can see, this is all rotten all through here, but the metal on either side of it's also really bad. This is completely rotten through, and then back here, it's completely rotten. So, I think I'm gonna have to rethink this, because I was gonna patch this, but I think I might be better off getting another tub. Like going to the junkyard and sawing this out of another Prius that doesn't have all this rot, and just maybe, you know, somewhere along there or something. Because what I think I can do, if I can get a good tub, is cut this one off, like just as this curve starts, cut the other one off a little bit higher up, and literally just drop it in on top of it, weld it all the way around, weld and seam seal from the other side, and it'll just take care of all of this in one fell swoop. I think that's a much better repair than trying to patch all of this, because this is way worse than I thought. So I guess I'm done for today, but that sucks. I can't believe I missed that, because, you know, we probably still would have bought it, but I would have knocked a couple hundred more off the price if I had noticed that. This is a big bummer for me. Now I definitely have to get the rockers off and check them too, but this definitely looks like a combination of poor quality sealing when this job was done and water must be getting in from somewhere. I don't know where. And I mean, honestly, if it was sealed poorly, that would get water in here. And then once it started rusting, that would just let more and more water in. But, man, that's a bummer. Oh well, I'll pick this up once I have a replacement tub. Hey all, it's a couple days later, and I have acquired this. It's obviously another tub cut out of another Prius. Found this guy who, like a sideline of his, is just buying this generation Prius and parting them out. So I have his number now for future needs. So now what I basically need to do with that is I need to go in and cut this out, all the bad stuff, which I'm basically, my plan is, I don't know how well it shows up on camera, there's a little ridge right here. I'm planning to cut basically near the bottom of that ridge all the way around and then get inventive over here. And then I need to trim this to also fit. And on this one, I'm going to cut up higher on that ridge so that they can overlap slightly so that I can get a nice solid attachment point. This is in really good shape. It's got a little bit of surface rust here and there, which I'm going to treat. It's got a dent over here that I can hammer back out. The only problem is this is the back panel of the car. You can see how I cut it out. It goes past. So I'm going to have to figure out how to, like, cut this here and then cut the other car in the right place so that they overlap and I can drop this tub in. That's probably going to be the hardest part, is figuring out this sort of corner. I thought about drilling out all the spot welds, but the problem is I'd have to drill out all the spot welds, cut a section out of this, weld it into that one, make sure it's all lined up properly, and then weld this tub back to there through the holes that I drilled out, which is just asking for trouble. Because trying to drill out a spot weld cleanly is very, very difficult. Usually you damage one panel or the other. It's very hard to save both of them. So I'm going to try and cut this to fit, and if it doesn't work, I'm going to drill out the spot welds and do the sectioning. But that's going to be a last resort, because I really don't want to do that if I don't have to. So I guess step one is to hack the bottom out of this. All right, and we've got this fitted in. I'm very happy with how it's come out. As you can see, it's pretty tight all the way around. There's a couple spots like there that I'm going to just have to push it a little. And here I'm going to have to do a little bit of hammer work on the back edge. And back here I'm going to have to do a little bit of hammer work on the back edge or push in or whatever as I do it, just because of the shape of the panel. But overall, it's in there really nice and snug. I was afraid it was going to have really bad gaps or something, but it's in there nice and snug. It's in there nice and tight. All the join lines are up pretty high. Right here, there's a brace that's right here, and the only thing that kind of sucks is drilling out the brace on the old one so that it would stay on the car, and then drilling out the piece of brace on this one. I wasn't successful in my attempts to not go through the panel here so when I weld that brace in, it's going to be a little bit of a pain in the butt because there's a full hole all the way through, but I think I can do it. After I shut the camera off, the compressor kicked on, so while I was waiting for that, I hammered out the worst of this dent and this dent. So it's basically ready to go in at this point. All I need to do now, pull it back out, grind away to bare metal all the way around on it and on the body. Treat that seam with the copper weld through primer. This tub needs some attention to get some surface rust off of it. The whole thing is going to get painted inside and out, so I just want to get the surface rust off of it. And then basically it's going to go in. My plan is to stitch weld it all around the perimeter. I don't know if I'm going to weld it completely or not. It's going to partially depend on how well it's going in. But the plan is to weld all the way around at the top, and then on the underside, if there's any place where the pieces are a little ways away, I'm going to pull them together and weld there, but I'm not going to weld the entire bottom just because there's a fuel line, there's a charcoal canister, a bunch of other stuff. Alright, this is all prepped to go in basically. The little bits you're seeing are the rust converter. I also sprayed the inside of that with it. The whole edge is all ground down, and the tub is sitting in the driveway having it's also been sprayed with the rust converter. I'm gonna go in and have dinner. Alright, I am back and I'm at the weld stage. Came back in, cleaned off the remaining acid, sprayed the edges of this, including the inside edge of this, with the copper weld through primer. The bracket that was over there, everything except the last little inch that I'm welding on, I sprayed with Rust Reformer, which is not as good as Master Series, but it's good enough because it's better than the nothing that was in there before. So this is now all ready to weld in. It's in as much the right place as I can get it. There's just a certain degree of fiddling I'm going to have to do, so I'm going to get the main part tacked in and then futz with this edge until I get it in a good place, and then weld it up. I would like that to be all for tonight, but I think it's going to rain tomorrow, so I'm probably going to try and get the Master Series paint on this, because that can't go on when it's wet. Though now that no, I can't do that tonight because this has still got some leftover of the phosphoric acid which hasn't dried yet. But anyway, I'll get this welded in tonight, because then that stage will be done. Alright, well, I'm not happy with it, but it's in. I was having major inconsistency problems with the welder. It would do like a good weld, a really cold weld, and then a good weld, and then a really shit weld, and then it would burn through all of a sudden in metal that's not rusty. Just, I don't know what's going on with that welder, but there's definitely a problem with it. It's definitely not just a weird fluke thing. I definitely need to have it looked at or something. But I got it in, it's all welded all the way around, at least every inch, which is more than enough structurally for this thing. And so now what I just have to do is vacuum out all you saw how much it was spattering, I'm sure, but I have to vacuum out all the spatter, and then I'm going to slap a coat of Master Series on the inside and outside of this, and I call that it for today. I'm not going to film that because I'm really tired and I just want to get it done. So I will see you all tomorrow. Alright, it's the next morning, and here we are. Master Series'd all the seam inside. There was very little rust in here, but I decided I would rather have more paint in here than less, especially down in that area. My plan is to drill a hole in the plug that goes in that hole as a drain, but that means there's going to be a little bit of water that collects from time to time. But that's all done. The edges around here, I really slopped the paint in so that it would dribble down into here as much as possible to provide any protection it could. Underneath, again, lots and lots of paint. Same thing. Getting up in here was a little difficult, so this isn't as sealed as I would like it to be, but all the rusty areas got a good solid coat. This bracket I didn't have a chance to sand down, which is why the outside of it's not done. I'm going to be doing some other rust treatment stuff under here, so I will get that bracket at that time. But this is all ready for seam sealing, and then it'll be ready for paint and truck bed liner and whatnot. But it's trucking along. Technically it could be driven right now if it had to be. I just have to put these plugs back in. Oh, another thing, I didn't mention it last night, and I don't know how obvious it was in the videos, but I wrapped the hybrid battery in a welding blanket. It's had the disconnect pulled, the battery is also disconnected, but I wrapped it in a blanket, including tucking it up underneath, just for the obvious protection of I don't want sparks hitting a giant battery. All right, and there it's been seam sealed. Sorry if I'm kind of banging through this, but I have to get to work. So yeah, I scuffed everything real quick with a red scuffy pad, and then including everything because I'm going to be painting obviously, and then cleaned this and then seam sealed it, same thing underneath. So this will now keep water out of that gap. I do use proper seam sealer, not like silicone or something, even though I'm cheap, because it was pointed out to me once that, you know, bathroom sealer is cheaper, but when was the last time you saw a bathroom drive down the highway at 60 miles an hour in 30-degree weather? So yeah. Anyway, this is going to dry, and then I'm going to come out hopefully later today if the rain holds off and put a coat of paint on this. All right, and here we are again. This has gotten 2 coats of Rust-Oleum and 1 coat of truck bed coating. This is going to sit open like this so as many of the off-gassing can get out of it. All right, next part of this project. This is the replacement under brace that I got. Unfortunately, it is also rusty. If you tip it up and down, it sounds like a rain stick, and this bit of seam sealer is filling some holes. I'm not going to bother to... the reason I use the seam sealer is there's no point in me welding up the holes if the whole thing is rotted internally. So what I did was sprayed a bunch of cavity wax in here to try and slow the rusting progress, sealed up these holes, and the whole thing's going to get Master Series and paint, because this will look passable to get through inspection, and it'll be better than what's in there. And somewhere down the line, I will take this off the car, save the ends, and remake the center bar, but that's low priority. My partner, so for right now, my partner stripped it all down while I was working on the spare tire well, so it's been ground down, it's been treated with phosphoric acid. Like I said, I sprayed that in, I sealed these up, and now it's going to get Master Series'd so that it can then go back on the car. I also, I have to weld 2 additional nuts over here because the bolts snapped off in those, so I need to replace those first, and then I have to get the one off the car, and I'm hoping that one comes off without too much of a fight, and I can get this in place and check that off the list as well. If you're wondering why I'm putting that other rusty bar under the car, it's because this is what it's replacing. Rotted completely through, top and bottom, cracked actually in the middle here. So, like I said, that other one's not great, but it's so much better than this. I had planned to cut a section out of this to basically weld over where the little rust holes are in that one, but I realized that this one's just, it's completely rotted out from the inside, so none of this metal is good. On the plus side, I was able to save all but 1 piece of hardware from it, which is good because some of these are these really weird bolts. One of these broke, but I have one that came out good from when I took that bar out of the other car, so I'll be able to install that with relative ease. So this is going to go in the scrap pile along with the spare tire well, and I'm going to clean up the mount areas a little bit, give them a quick wire brush and spray with phosphoric acid, and then spray them with something just so that while this bar's off, the spots where it bolts on can get at least treated a tiny bit. And another day. Today is finishing up the back work on this Prius. I've got the bar completely painted with Master Series, and then with Rust-Oleum, and then with truck bed liner. So it's as good as it's going to get. In fact, let's take that with us. Coming over here, the hardware for it's over there. That got wire brushed and phosphoric acided and rust reformered. And then this is back in. The bolt that went here was completely rotted into the old bracket, such that I had to cut it off, and it's supposed to fit into this plastic wheel and move with it. The guy who had Priuses didn't have any of these that were in good shape. So my solution was to get a longer bolt of the correct thread and weld a lug nut to it so that the lug wrench now tightens and untightens this. So if this tire has to come out, the tool to do it is right there, so you don't get screwed. Honestly, I think that would have been a better design anyway. The spare got pumped up because it was low. So this is now ready to put all the back plastics in. I did get from the same guy I got the tub from, this and the piece that goes here, because both of those are really gross on this car. Something dirty had been hauled in it. So it's going to go in, but this is all done back here. The plug that was about here, I didn't show it to you, I cut and drilled a small hole in it, probably about that big, to allow any water to drain out. Though it's rained the last couple days and there hasn't been any water in here, my wife was cleaning the car up and found a giant mass here and on the other side of stuff that was just impacted. So my suspicion is that that was keeping the water from going anywhere. So it was coming through the seal or through somewhere. So hopefully we won't get any more water. Excuse me. So hopefully we won't get any more water in there now that that's been dealt with. But I'm going to bolt in this bar. I'm going to put in the under tray. I'm going to call it done. I'm not going to film this because you can't see me under there. Oh, the rusty spots on the other side of the car got wire brushed, phosphoric acided, and sprayed with rust reformer. It's not really sufficient to stop it forever, but it's better than just leaving it, so it's an improvement. So yeah, this job is done aside from just putting stuff back on. And it's all, the well is fixed. This bar is way better than what's in there and will last for a while until I come up with another solution. So I'm happy with this. So that's it for fixing the massive problem I found on our problem-free new car. Right after I did all that work, it was giving me an error for hybrid issues, but it turns out what it is that plug for the hybrid battery. You have to push it in, flip the lever, and push it over to lock it in, and that trips a little sensor that tells it it's locked in. So without that, it was completely freaking out. Even after I fixed that, it still freaked out for a little bit because it was like, I'd had problems with my hybrid system. What's wrong? But that's since resolved itself. I do have to get front brakes on it in the next, 10,000 miles or so. So probably going to do that in the near future, but that hopefully won't be interesting enough for a video. But yeah, my wife's been driving it. She's super happy with it. She's so much happier without, cigarette smell and that. So made her happy. That's worth it all to me. I got to get the Movediz cleaned up so I can put that up for sale and get that out of our life. But that'll be it for now. Talk to you later. Bye.